Just like Bitcoin is a big part of that story, just like AI is a big part of that story.
Systems of AI systems are orchestrating battlefield activities, from this tactical to the operational to the strategic.
We're now just a little over a week out from the big event. Tickets are very limited at this point. We are seriously close to selling out. So if you've been on the fence or waiting for the right time, this is it. Now's your moment to lock in your spot. Head over to btcpolicysummit.org. That's btcpolicysummit.org to grab your ticket. The Bitcoin Policy Summit is not your average crypto conference. This is where policy meets protocol. We're bringing together lawmakers, industry leaders, academics, and technologists to talk about what Bitcoin policy should look like, how Washington is thinking about digital assets, and where regulation meets innovation. Expect high-level, no-fluff conversations that move the needle. This isn't about hype, it's about the future of Bitcoin in the real world. Why is this summit important right now? Because we are at a critical moment in the Bitcoin policy landscape. The 2024-2025 election cycle, central bank digital currencies, global financial uncertainty, these aren't abstract ideas. They're shaping the environment Bitcoin has to survive and thrive in. So whether you're an advocate, a builder, or just someone who cares about freedom and financial sovereignty, this summit is for you. You'll hear from some of the most important voices in the space. Confirmed speakers include policy experts from DC and abroad, founders of major Bitcoin organizations, legal scholars, privacy advocates, and yes, even skeptics. Because we believe in open dialogue, not echo chambers. There will be panels on energy and Bitcoin mining, national security implications of Bitcoin, the legal future of self-custody, stablecoins, surveillance, and freedom. You're not going to want to miss these conversations. Beyond the main stage, the summit is also about connecting. You'll meet people who are working on real solutions, open source developers, think tank leaders, grassroots organizers, and of course, fellow Bitcoiners who care about the long game. This is where new alliances and new ideas take root. The summit takes place in Washington, D.C. Exact location and agenda details are on the website, btcpolicysummit.org. But again, and we can't stress this enough, tickets are almost gone. So if this speaks to you, don't wait. Use code BTCPolicyHour21 to save and secure your place in what's shaping up to be one of the most important Bitcoin events of the year.
Bitcoin that's entering into its geopolitical era, it is important to pay attention to the geopolitical shifts and changing risks associated with that. So that's kind of like the preface here.
When you zoom out, insurance isn't just a local business. It's a global ecosystem. Companies like Allianz, AIG, Swiss Re, and Munich Re write global risk, from hurricane losses in the Gulf of Mexico to earthquake risk in Japan to cybersecurity policies in London. It's all interconnected. The total global insurance industry, north of $7 trillion in premiums annually, managing well over $35 trillion in assets. And yet, the entire model relies on one fragile assumption, that fiat currencies will retain value over time. But that assumption is breaking. Here's the problem. Insurance carriers hold massive, long-duration liabilities. A life insurance policy might not pay out for 30 years. To hedge that, carriers traditionally use conservative investments, government bonds, cash equivalents, investment-grade corporates, safe, predictable. But what happens when real yields go negative? When inflation hits 5%, but you're earning 2% on treasuries? You're guaranteeing a loss, not just for a year or two, but for decades. This is the quiet crisis. Carriers are under siege by the very macro forces Bitcoin was built to hedge against. Bitcoin isn't just a new asset. It's a new monetary foundation, fixed supply, decentralized issuance, no political tampering. It's not someone else's liability. For insurers, especially reinsurers who manage tail risks, Bitcoin could act as a reserve asset. Think about that. Not a speculative bet, but a core solvency hedge. Imagine holding 1 to 5% of reserves in Bitcoin, not for volatility, but for policy continuity in the event of fiat debasement or bond market collapse. Bitcoin becomes the backstop to the backstop. So why hasn't this happened yet? Insurers are conservative by design. Their regulators demand capital buffers in traditional formats. Their models rely on Basel rules, Solvency II frameworks, and actuarial consistency. Bitcoin? To most, it's too volatile, too unproven, too unregulated. But here's the kicker. The volatility premium is shrinking. The regulatory clarity is improving. And the existential need, that's growing by the day. Most people don't realize that global insurance carriers write risk across currencies and across borders. You might have a policy written in Turkish lira, reinsured in Swiss francs, and priced using US inflation metrics. That complexity needs a neutral settlement asset. And Bitcoin might be the first viable candidate in history. It's borderless, it's liquid, and it's apolitical. In inflation-ridden economies like Argentina, Nigeria, or Lebanon, insurers are watching claims spike while their reserves erode. Bitcoin offers them a way out, a universal value layer that can plug into a fractured monetary world.
One thing that the Israelis clearly want is to actually now wipe out Iran's ability to make a bomb. And there are two ways that can happen. One is comprehensive kinetic strikes against all of the different factories, essentially, that Iran uses for their nuclear process. The biggest two being Natanz, which is this partially above ground, partially below ground facility in the desert, which was the subject of maybe the most famous cyber attack of all time in 2014 that led to the Stuxnet virus that actually has an interesting...
This is where the bridge needs to be built. Actuaries, underwriters, CFOs, they need to see Bitcoin not as a bet, but as a hedge, a portfolio diversifier, a liquidity layer, a long-term inflation sink. That takes education, risk modeling, real-world case studies. We need pilot programs, maybe reinsurers testing 1% Bitcoin allocations for long-dated tail events. Maybe parametric policies with BEC-settled claims. Maybe Bitcoin-denominated reinsurance pools for catastrophe bonds. This is the hard, boring work, but it's what unlocks real change. Some institutions are already inching closer. Fidelity has integrated Bitcoin into retirement options. BlackRock and Franklin Templeton are bringing ETFs to market. MicroStrategy holds over $15 billion in Bitcoin as a reserve strategy. Insurance, still early, but it will come because the pressures that Bitcoin solves are only intensifying. Inflation, fiscal instability, geopolitical fragmentation, fiat skepticism, and insurers with trillions in liability will have to respond. If Bitcoin is digital gold, it's also digital rebar, structural support for a weakening global financial frame. As insurance becomes more global and more fragile, we need monetary assets that can survive uncertainty, not just financially, but geopolitically. Bitcoin is not perfect. It's not a panacea, but it is a tool, and perhaps the most important financial tool we've ever discovered to defend value against time, politics, and entropy. The question is no longer, will it be adopted? It's how fast and who moves first, because once the carriers get it, the floodgates open.
Bitcoin connection, some of that same code was used in the early sort of crypto jacking attacks and Bitcoin ransomware attacks. That was a joint attack by the United States and Israel. And then this word that everyone's going to hear a lot, Fordo, this other enrichment and storage facility that's half a mile below ground in the mountains.
Modern warfare isn't just about firepower anymore. It's about data. And in today's conflicts, data is a weapon. AI now supports the entire process of identifying, tracking, and neutralizing targets. This process is known as the kill chain, a military concept broken into find, fix, finish. Exploit, analyze, and disseminate in post-strike ops. Traditionally, this sequence took hours or days. Today, with AI, it's down to minutes, and that changes everything. Target identification. AI parses satellite feeds, drone footage, SIGINT, even social media to flag potential threats. Nomination characterization. ML models cross-reference object types, heat signatures, known threat profiles. Is it a tank or a decoy, enemy or civilian? AI makes a first call. Human-in-the-loop review. Humans review and approve, often via high-res screens in command centers far from the front. Target prosecution. Once approved, the system can dispatch a drone or fire control system, all within 3 to 5 minutes. Modern warfare isn't just about firepower anymore. It's about data. And in today's conflicts, data is a weapon. AI now supports the entire process of identifying, tracking, and neutralizing targets. This process is known as the kill chain, a military concept broken into find, fix, finish. Exploit, analyze, and disseminate in post-strike ops. Traditionally, this sequence took hours or days. Today, with AI, it's down to minutes. And that changes everything. Target identification. AI parses satellite feeds, drone footage, SIGINT, even social media to flag potential threats. Nomination characterization. ML models cross-reference object types, heat signatures, known threat profiles. Is it a tank or a decoy, enemy or civilian? AI makes a first call.
To construct covert, drone emplacements essentially, and targeting, beacons at high value, locations, can facilitate strategic surprise, both from the blue strikes that can, paralyze command leadership, political leadership, instill a sense of panic in the society and the national decision makers, and in a Taiwan scenario, kind of force like a fait accompli before Western nations are able to effectively intervene.
Imagine radar from NATO, drones funded by private donors, thermal feeds from satellites, AI from a Silicon Valley startup, all fused into one clean, clickable interface. This is the military's Google Maps for war, except every pin could be life or death. But with great automation comes serious ethical questions. What happens when AI makes a mistake? Who's liable for a misfire? Is there truly human oversight, or is the human just clicking yes on an algorithm's decision? Even the US military admits the faster we automate the kill chain, the harder it is to stay accountable. And as smaller nations, corporations, and eventually non-state actors gain access to this tech, we risk creating a future where war is just a software problem. Looking forward, autonomous drone swarms are already being tested. AI is being trained to predict enemy movements days in advance. US and China are in a silent race for battlefield AI supremacy.